Hello and welcome to In the Spotlight with Quocirca, the definitive podcast on digital disruption in the print industry. I'm Luella Fernandez, Director of Quocirca, and today I'm joined by the MyQ founders, and today we'll be discussing the opportunities in the print management sector and how MyQ is differentiating its products in the growing cloud print market. So welcome to the show, all of you. It's great to have you here today.
Hi, Luella. How are you?
Hello. Hi.
Yeah, so we've got the three co-founders here today. So can I ask you to firstly introduce yourselves individually and tell us a bit about your role at MyQ?
Okay, let's start from the left.
Okay, so I am Radek Tetík, currently a CTO of MyQ, one of the co-founders. So I started with MyQ since the beginning as the co-founder, meaning probably. And I was always responsible for software development. In the beginning, I was actually doing the server programming. And as we grew and got more and more guys to do the work, so I moved to the management role, and currently I'm managing the software development in MyQ.
Mm-hmm. Hi, I'm Jakub, also one of the founders. I joined MyQ together with Radek, and my main responsibility was, let's say, embedded development and electronics and technical stuff. And I'm still in that field up till today, I would say.
And my name is Martin, and I'm CEO of MyQ. So I'm trying to connect all the smart heads together and keep our vision and direction in the same path.
So we want to really discuss MyQ's vision and strategy. And I just want to add, I came along to the MyQ Showtime event earlier, a few months ago, and it was really incredible in terms of the show you put on, and also the fact it gave some really great insight into the MyQ as a company and the culture and the enthusiasm of all your employees. So it was really great to understand, a bit more about the history of MyQ. So for those of the audience who haven't seen all of the content from that event, could you maybe tell us a bit more about the MyQ history, how it started, and the journey you've been on over the past 30 years?
Basically, we started in print industry 30 years ago. This is basically why we celebrated this special time on our latest Showtime. And we started in a small company which was distributing printers in the Czech market. But sooner and later, we expanded the business by development of some solutions. And after some tries and smaller solutions, I put my friends together because I found them in a high school. From the high school, we were like friends. And so later on, I put them and called them to the company, and we started to work on the MyQ project.
Yep. If I may add, usually they say that you shouldn't build a business on a friendship, but you should build a friendship on a business. But in our case, somehow we are first friends and second, let's say, business partners. I don't know how it's possible.
It still works today, right?
Yeah.
I would probably say that this is the most valuable asset we have, right? Because we can trust each other and we know each other.
The friendship is the bottom line. So we can always trust each other.
So we are having fun, basically. Yeah,
exactly. And I remember those days. I was into graphics and sound at that time. We were doing some video, music, graphical things on computers. So I was doing some promotions or videos and animations for this printer distributor company, for conventions. So it was great times. Yeah. So that was my beginning in the printing industry.
And basically what happened later, so the MyQ team started to be bigger than the company itself, because it was a Czech company focused on Czech market. Of course, we received a lot of interest from abroad. So sooner or later, we split into different independent company, MyQ Corporation, and we continue to grow there independently together.
If I may add, that was one of our big advantages, that Czech Republic, as a small country, basically made us focus on the broader audience abroad from the very beginning. So our product is really multilingual and really localized to all the languages, basically. If you see some products from, English-speaking markets or from German-speaking markets, usually they are more focused on their markets because it's like they are big enough so they can support them. We didn't have this advantage, and now we are global.
I've also been in the industry for 30 years, and I did a computer science degree around the same time, I think, as you would have done. So it was really fascinating to hear about your story, about how you met at high school and, what you studied at university and how you've grown this business to, like you say, a global business today. So in terms of the fact you've moved from obviously just focusing on the Czech market to a global market now, what would you say have been the key areas that the business has changed in terms of its vision and strategy? And what is your real focus today? Obviously it's print management, but where are you seeing the real opportunities?
I think when we started, it was 2007, just before the economic crisis. And, this time was typical by one fact that there were a lot of people you could hire. So the companies were focused on savings. So how to control them, how to keep the printouts low, etc., etc. But it dramatically changed over the years, because if we see the market today, it's really hard to find the right people. Probably my friends will take a note about this. So for us, it lost the meaning, to just restrict people. And our vision developed into something wider. And it is that we are really focused on all users, because this is the biggest department in every company. So we wanted to bring them some benefit, not only restrictions and controlling. And what we did, we basically provided the functionality which made their work simpler, easier, and they could save their operating time when they were doing something on a printer. So this was how we developed in the last years. But then big thing came, I think 1 or 2 years ago, right? The pandemic, and it totally changed everything. And I think that what we expect in the future, that people will definitely will not return to the situation how they worked before the pandemic. They learned a lot about the online tools, cloud, and all those things which enabled them to work during the pandemic. So those topics are now resonating a lot to the companies. And we will definitely have a lot of solutions and answers how to survive in the future.
I would say it's not a new stuff. What's happening now. The thing is that it was all there, but the environment was not right. And now, after the pandemics, after the changes, it's worth it to have another go, another try on cloud solution and working from home, paperless office, all this stuff. And I would say we are now positioned correctly because we do have the products, we are ready, and we shall see where it goes. But I believe now we are in front.
It was a big change, a social change. The way how we work changed. So, but from the technical point of view, from the CTO point of view, it was a great challenge because we had to, abandon our old approaches. I mean, from, let's say, technology point of view, and start adopting cloud technologies, these mobile first approaches. So for me as a CTO, it was also a big technological change. We had to, let's say, undergo, how to say it, to, let's say, meet the demands of the new world, let's say.
And I think what I really like about the MyQ ethos and also the technology is that, like you say, it's very focused on the user experience. And as Martin mentioned, in the traditional print environment, there is quite a lot of control around restricting print usage and controlling, whether it's color printing or number of pages and so on. And I think, the approach you're taking is very much putting it in the user's hands and giving them the kind of power to actually print or capture as they want. And would you say that would be one of the key differentiators of the MyQ platform at the moment? And is that the direction you're going to continue taking, is, moving away from restrictive practices to really the user being in control?
I would say that we are really happy that you participated on our, Showtime, and you could see the main title, of our T-shirts and basically our messaging, and it was respect people, and it's not just the blind word or some let's say topic which is not connected with us. It's really connected with our focus and how we want to work with our audience or with our users. That we really want to understand what they need to do, and we are trying to find, the way how to simplify their daily work. And one important thing is that as you ask us about the trends, what we see, if we recap those trends into some bullets, let's say. So we see that there is definitely a decline of print volume. This is now really triggered because during the pandemic, a lot of people were without the printers, or they were not equipped with the same technology like in the office. Other thing is that we were not able to deliver the paper documents or receive the paper documents. So a lot of people learned that it's possible to exchange those documents online, even with the public institutions. So as we spoke many years about this trend, that finally next year probably the print volume will decline. It always increased finally. Yeah. So from 90s we heard the same story, but now it really happened because there were no other way. There were no alternative thing. So you could survive only with the online and digitalized documents. So this is one trend. So it really started, and it will definitely continue because when people learn something, they keep doing that. That's the simple formula. Second thing, we all saw the troubles with the logistics. So the chip affair and then the production problems. So until today, you are not able to purchase whatever you want. And it's not only connected with the cars, it's connected also with the printers. So if you really want to purchase new printer, it's simply not possible because the OEMs, they don't have all the models. They don't have enough stock. So it's always about some compromise. Yeah? So it's another factor against printing and against which is disrupting the market today. The third thing is that especially younger generation, they are quite familiar with the new trend that they don't want to own devices. They are ready to rent a car, rent a flat, use a taxi or scooter instead of owning the device, whatever it is. And we really think that this is now waiting also for a printing market because of all those, let's say, symptoms. This is a logical answer which could help, because if you don't need to purchase the device, then the logistic is not that issue. If the printing volume is decreasing, so you don't need to be scared about the machine which is not used properly or which is unused, which means that your TCO is going to be worse and you are not efficient. You own something which is not necessary, etc., etc. And our answer, which we see in this, our long-term vision we started to work on is definitely to teach people, to educate them that the printer could be shared as well as the scooter or car or flat. So this is one hidden topic we are working on, and it's in general it's connected with the sustainability. There's a lot of companies, they are trying to keep the printing volume low, and they try to count the carbon footprint connected with the printouts only. But we see that our value, we are quite small company, right? Just 120 people. So we are not that global guy and which can do a lot of things everywhere. But we see our value in one simple thing, that we could connect the latest technology with this vision and help people to share those devices in a much more efficient way, which will bring a very important effect. There will be less printers used, those printers will be used properly because there will be automatically bigger volume because those low volumes, let's say from home offices or smaller companies or smaller departments, we can collect on such a corridor device. This is what we have been doing for years, but now we can move this device out of the house or out of the company equipment, and we can share the device in the reception or on some public space. And this is the strategy which is now really resonating to us. And we are now preparing new, let's say, modules and products which will enable this vision to our
yes.
users.
If I may, if you think about it, if you want to be green, it's not only about planting trees for I don't know how many pages you print and so on. You must look at the whole picture, and the whole picture basically says that if you are efficient, you spend the energy efficiently on the most efficient level, then you are the most, let's say, ecological or the most green. So for the printers, it means certain print volume per month. If you are lower, basically it's getting old without being used. If you are higher, you are breaking the equipment and so on. So we must look at the whole cycle from the manufacture through usage to disposal, consumables, electricity, all this stuff. And if you count in, I don't know, people's time, it also makes a difference. So it's you shouldn't be one-dimensional. You should see everything. So in this way, I would say by making the process efficient, we are basically helping the planet. I really believe so. It's like engineer's point of view on the.
I think that's really interesting perspective because I totally agree in terms of print volume recovery. There may be some recovery, but based compared to pre-pandemic levels, but ultimately print volumes are flat to declining, and also the return to the office is still very uncertain. I think I was reading recently that most offices are still at around 40% occupancy levels in terms of the number of employees that are back in the office. So that's obviously going to have a detrimental effect on print volumes. But I think picking up on the sustainability side of things, it is very much this circular approach, like you say, the end-to-end life cycle. And it's interesting to hear how MyQ.
Sorry, may I?
Yes, go ahead.
So, we should be able basically to make let's say two companies share a printer. That's the idea. If single one of them doesn't have the volume to fill in for the big machine, and they would need to use a small one which is not so efficient, logistics wise, waste wise, and so on. We can make the 6th floor and 7th floor of a building share a printer and basically be able to afford the most efficient big device.
So you're basically optimizing device utilization and across the company. And I think that the benefit of a company like MyQ is that you're not tied into hardware sales or consumable sales. You're very much about driving efficiency from what customers are already invested in. So I think that's really interesting, and definitely be looking.
From a sustainability point of view, from a technical point of view, to add something to that, I'm always pushing my developers, let's say, to write optimized algorithms, right? To use as little CPU as possible. That's also, saves energy, saves CO2, right?
But it does.
So we are always trying to write highly efficient, optimized software.
Yeah, so I suppose that's the kind of low code kind of development environment. So just picking up on that, because we see the cloud as, quite key to reducing costs around, servers and reducing energy costs. And I know MyQ has quite sort of strong views on, cloud and how MyQ is positioning its cloud native product in the market. So can you talk a bit more about your cloud strategy and how that maybe differs from some of the other vendors in the market?
Probably Radek could speak about the portfolio, why we have
We can a little bit touch why we have, let's say, two products. Mm-hmm. So historically, there was just the on-premise, basically, right? So logically, we started in 2007 with on-premise solution, which was working pretty well. And over time, this cloud, became very, very efficient. So people can move their operations into cloud. to save infrastructure costs and administration costs. So that's why we also, wanted to create something in the cloud and wondering how to do it. So the most obvious way is just to take what you have and somehow put it into cloud, which we tried from left and right, let's say, and found out that this is not the best approach. You will not use the benefits of the new world, of the new technology, the best. So that's why it took us some time, but finally we decided to create, let's say, a true cloud product from scratch, just reusing the know-how, but not the old code, let's say. The technology is totally different. So we really have rewritten all the code base. We just reuse the ideas, the expertise we got over the almost 15 years. And now we have truly cloud product. What does it mean, right? To have a true cloud product. That means that you have no hidden something in the company on a notebook, on some hidden server or some black box, which can ultimately fail. You need to maintain that box. You need to replace it if it fails. So you need to worry about that box. True cloud means you just install your app in the end user device, which is a mobile phone in MyQ-Roger world, because we are mobile first product. So mobile is the way how you talk to MyQ-Roger. So, and then you install app to the printer if you need it. Sometimes you don't need it at all, right? So we took this approach, and I think it's really paying off. It's people start understanding that this is the way to do cloud, because you really don't need to worry about anything else. You just work with the cloud like you work with the Netflix at home.
Yeah, so you have let's say 2 points of view. One is that you keep your data and your infrastructure locally on premise. Everybody knows this. I will just summarize. And you need to have your own IT administrators and so on. So you have control. You most probably know what you are doing, and you have your operation in-house. Or you are fine with somebody else controlling, let's say, your data or your infrastructure. You move it to the cloud, and then you would like to do with as little IT administration as possible. So you are paying somebody else to take over the operations for you. Either it's Microsoft, European initiative, AWS, whatever. And we see that there are problems. For example, companies are now finding out that it's very expensive to go to the cloud if they don't know what they are doing. So we try to offer a solution for those who are, let's say, fine using Office 365 or Google Docs and so on. So we are integrating with them, offering them no on-premise server solution, let's say. So either you just use your mobile phone, or you, as Radek said, just connect the printer itself to the cloud. So you must allow the printer to connect to the internet, which for some, let's say, old style companies can be a nightmare security-wise. Or we can offer them on-premise solution, which is more focused on, let's say, performance, and as opposed to cloud. With cloud, you have like accessibility, access everywhere, using as little setup as possible, and so on. On-premise, it can be a little bit more difficult to set up. Still, I would say the easiest in the industry if you use MyQ. And then you have big speeds, great control, and so on. So we have it like this. And by doing cloud, we also build the knowledge in our company. Because if you do only on-premise, you are stuck with those technologies. And now, by doing the cloud product, we have the know-how. We are really on the bleeding edge regarding mobile phone applications. We do have the knowledge. We can do cloud development. We really do know about the newest technologies, and we also still have a strong footing in the on-premise, let's say, production and so on. So when, as I expect in a few years, the cloud will decline because everybody will see that it's not such a great idea as they thought, we will still be here with our on-premise. So But if not, if I am mistaken and everybody will go to the cloud, we are there as well.
I wouldn't agree that cloud will decline, probably. I think that it will simply disappear, and probably it's not existing for a lot of customers. That's the benefit. Yeah, because if you download some application from the store, to your mobile device, you don't care what is running where. You just want to use this application in the purpose you download this application and wanted this application. And this is exactly why we have those two approaches. Because if you want to have the performance and you know a lot about the IT infrastructure, then MyQX is the right product for you. Because we can guarantee you and we can offer you, tons of functions we developed for the last 15 years. If you want to have something which is simply working, you don't care about the speed, but about the availability, about the resilience, about the flexibility, mobility, and all those things. Then you really need the technology which will be always ready, which is always in your pocket. And this is the cloud. But we even don't need to call it cloud, because you just want to use this function as the scooter. You don't care which motor or battery is inside. You just want to rent it, pay for it, and move from A to B. That's it. And this is why we have this approach with MyQ Roger, and why we will keep those two directions, because it's simply not overlapping so much. There are companies which are focused on those new trends, and those customers we have answer in MyQ Roger, and those traditional customers who started with us and who really want to use this what we are offering. They can have the benefits from the MyQX. That's why we need those two products, and on top of that, the very important thing is that those products are owned by this company. So what is logical, we will integrate those two products. Again, because the audiences are a little bit different. And if you are somewhere in the middle, or if the headquarters would like to have the performance and the branches would like to use the mobility, you could use basically the same ecosystem, but two products which will perfectly fit to each other and provide you the functions you really need to use.
That was a sneak peek to the future. We are basically working on that idea to combine on-premise with cloud into one ecosystem.
I think that's a really good point, because definitely as an analyst, when we're reviewing the cloud print market, it has become, I think, unnecessarily complex. And I think, like you say, customers don't particularly mind where it's hosted, as long as they get the functionality. And I think, like you say, there'll always be the companies that are operating a traditional or legacy infrastructure that need the MyQX platform, sort of private cloud platform, and then others that will be further along that cloud journey that are looking for more cloud native applications. So I think, it makes sense, obviously, to have these two approaches. So, so I think I just wanted to end really with, I don't want to put you on the spot, but do you have any, I guess, predictions for 2023 in terms of what you think would be the big trend for the print industry? So maybe if you can think of one individually, and I'll ask Martin first.
Yeah, I see one mega trend which will come to all markets. And there will be one big or maybe small disruptor which will disrupt this market a lot. It will be MyQ with a lot of partners, because we can't do it, alone. We are so small. But with the strong help of all our thousands of partners, we really want to teach the people that print sharing, that's the topic or mega trend. The print sharing is really our future. And if we cooperate together, if we set up the printing points, and if we use the technology we will provide them based on the MyQ Roger, then we can be much more efficient than today. Yeah? And in a short description, basically what we were doing in the last years, from the local desks to the corridor, we want to do now from the corridor to some public places. The movement is the same. The strategy is the same. The only thing which will change is that the device will be not shared by the colleagues, but by all the people who want to share it. And then this megatrend could answer all the other trends which we rack up in a while. and could really help the planet, because we would need to use less products, less consumables, smaller stocks, and we could use those existing devices more efficiently than even before.
Yep, I would say we are firmly standing with our feet on the ground. We don't think that we will create some trends. We are not trendsetters. We are, a small company from the middle of Europe, but we are, let's say, riding the wave. And I believe we have just now really recognized what the trend is, as Martin says, and we are basically in front because of this foresight. So if the situation changes, I think nobody could predict how the year 2022 would look like, and nobody knows what the future will bring. If the trends change, we will be, I hope, ready again, and we will see. So we just stay vigilant. Technology-wise, I think we are really on top. We know our processes. We know how to, grow the team, do whatever we need. And now it's about the visions.
So we will be like a surfers.
Yeah.
We don't need to create the wave, but we will show that it's possible to surf the wave.
Yeah. So our little Steve Jobs needs to do his job.
I wouldn't compare me.
Okay, no. Sorry, not little.
No. Full respect to Steve.
Many important things have been said, but I still don't think the cloud version of printing software is mature enough. So I think 23 we will continue to, let's say, make cloud printing more mature, more featureful, let's say, or with more features. Move features from on-premise to cloud as we are learning along the way what's working there, what is not. So definitely cloud will become more mature in 23. And the cloud is just an enabler. So the printer sharing is one nice, great idea we think will come. And cloud allowed us to do that. Yeah. So you can just have an app, and that's beautiful. We have learned from many other industries that it's possible to do great things. And you can pay with an app from your table in the restaurant. Yeah. So now why not to pay for printing or scanning in the reception of an office building? Yeah. So that will be 23, I think.
Yeah, no, they're great vision for 2023. And I really like the fact, you talk about the move to the kind of subscription economy, and, the way that, printing will be a resource that's shared rather than the hardware. And, I think it's going to be really interesting to see how that shapes out in 2023. But it's great, thank you again for joining me today. It's been really great to hear more about what MyQ is doing. As I say, the Showtime event was brilliant in terms of, really understanding the enthusiasm behind the brand and the ethos. But it's obviously very clear that you're all very good friends, because that comes across very well in terms of the energy between you. So, thank you again for joining me on today's show.
Thank you so much for the invitation.
Thank you for inviting us. Thank you.
So thank you for joining today's episode of In the Spotlight with Quocirca. For more information, please go to quocirca.com and be sure to subscribe to our YouTube channel. This was the last episode in Series 5, so I look forward to seeing you again in Series 6 in the new year.